David Seymour is forever talking about dividing by ethnicity, how it's never worked anywhere in the world. One of the things we often say about that is we go, affirmative action? Could we say affirmative action kind of worked? That's so, maybe there's some, but he says it as a fact, right? And no one ever pushes back until old mate Jack Tame.
That's the division it's led us to.
So you've said, I think, that dividing people by race and ethnicity and granting them different sets of rights or legal rights has never worked anywhere.
Yep.
What about Sweden?
Silence.
What about Sweden?
Well, the Sami reindeer people have indigenous rights to herd reindeer. They have land rights, a Sami parliament. All of that's enshrined in law. Sweden's not yet a failed state.
Well, that may well be true.
Yeah, this is really important to cut in straight away. He says is a failed state. He doesn't say has some issues in the state to work about. Now, a failed state is not a country that's got, 3% discussion difference. A failed state is like a crashing economy, cannot function. Very careful to watch the trick here. He says it's a failed state. Then when he gets pushed back on, he goes, well, I don't think it's good for everybody. So he's saying different things, and it's really good that Jack called him out on it.
Parliament, all of that's enshrined in law. Sweden's not yet a failed state.
Well, that may well be true, but I think...
What about Canada?
Silence.
Well, again...
And the US, they have indigenous people have rights enshrined in law. Same with Aboriginal Australians. These aren't failed states.
Well, if you want to talk about Australia, Canada and the United States...
No, I mean, that phrase you've used a few times now, that dividing people by race and ethnicity, granting them different sets of legal rights, has never worked anywhere. I mean, there are 4 countries where it's worked.
Well, actually, I don't believe it has worked. If you want to talk about any of those countries, let's take Canada, for example, one that I happen to know a little bit about the background.
I never knew he'd been to Canada. Did you know he'd been to Canada, Joey? I was never aware of that.
Don't make me get that picture back up again.
Let's take Canada, for example, one that I happen to know a little bit about the background. The reason that people believe New Zealand has the best race relations in the world is because we've never done or never dreamed of doing what Canada's done, which has effectively put 1 million people of First Nations ancestry under INAC, or Indian and Northern Affairs Canada, and say you live on a reserve.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is working. That's the interview then.
Yeah.
Put it back in the bag. We're the envy of the world for race relations because of what we've been doing for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I think I tweeted something very similar today, Chewy, and I used that thing about failed state. It's like, but New Zealand's not. So, hang on. The way we're doing it now, we haven't fallen over. We haven't, so it's working here. But you say it doesn't. Yeah. Anyway, we'll keep going. Give them some grace.
Under INAC, or Indian and Northern Affairs Canada, and say you live on a reserve, it's governed by a band council, all of your social services are funded through one government department, and the level of poverty, dysfunction, abuse that occurs on those reserves is absolutely third world. So, the idea...
Third world. This doesn't work third world. He's using an example, but we also spoke about Sweden, third world or world leading. New Zealand, third world?
See, the thing is, what Jack has said here is not that all of those countries that were listed are doing a fantastic job, and that this is the pathway of how to treat your indigenous people. North America clearly has problems. Canada is an absolute shit show for how they treat their indigenous people, and they're only starting now to address that. The Sami people had to fight for everything that they've got in Finland and Sweden. So Jack isn't saying here's a list of countries that do it better.
No.
The argument that David Seymour is saying is that it's never worked anywhere ever.
And it causes the state to fail. It causes the state to fail, which clearly it's not.
None of that is true. And then in the same conversation, he says we're the envy of the world for our race relations. And it just made me have a brain hemorrhage where I go, yes, because we've got the treaty, Te Tiriti, and we've got the Waitangi Tribunal, and we've had 50 years of learned discussion about what this document means to us. That's why we're the envy of the world. No one has these things.
Yep. All right. Let's keep going.
that somehow an American or Australian or Canadian view. Yeah, but my thing is it doesn't work. The reason that people admire...
Whilst giving examples of it working.
New Zealand is that compared to any of those other 3 Anglo countries, we have taken the view that all New Zealanders have equal rights. That's actually what our treaty says. In the last 50 years, we've started to go down a track that, in my view, makes us much more like Australia, Canada and the United States, where people who are of First Nations or Indigenous or Aboriginal heritage are told, no, you're in a separate basket from other citizens.
They're hardly failed states, though, are they? So why should Parliament...
Just a second, though. The question is for the people who are affected by those policies.
Well, I think many Māori would argue that actually Māori haven't benefited from the status quo in New Zealand right now. Māori are overrepresented in all the bad things, underrepresented in all the good stats in New Zealand.
Yeah, but
very quickly,
though. No, you're missing the point here. The point is there are 2 basic ways to do this. One is to have division, a different set of rights, different sovereignty.
The division that this bill is causing. He says division like if people do separate things in separate areas. If people over 65 can get a pension and people under 65 can't. You know, if the Catholic Church can only hire male priests, no females, discrimination based on sex, that kind of division's okay. He's not challenging that kind of division. So you always got to bring it back to why is he so focused on these race issues when he's happy to see discrimination in other areas of life as well.
He will always mention New Zealand as being divided, like this is the most divided that we've ever been. And then he introduced this bill, and that was shown to be a lie as well.
Yeah.
So if his concern is how divided this country is, why are you dividing it more?
Yeah, and or like you've just said very cleverly, Chewy, when you've looked for an expression of division, say the hikoi, what you saw was unity. I mean, it's even because if it was division, you would have seen a counter protest. Was there one? No. Couple of odd individuals here and there. So that would be division. Like you think about, they always talk about 81 Springbok Tour. There was a protest and there was a counter protest. There was division. They're saying there's division, but we're not seeing division. We might be hearing division if we listen to fucking talkback radio or read the, as you always say, Chewy, what is it, the New Zealand Herald comments section. But when you get the chance to put the rubber where the road is, literally on the road walking, there seems to be complete unity in the way that this country despises in general what they're doing. We'll just get to the end of this. It's got like 30 seconds.
Live under a different jurisdiction in a different location. That is the Australian, Canadian and American model. It's been a disaster. Are there problems in New Zealand? Yes. But our model of saying we have...
Sorry. Just gonna say, he keeps saying these big words. It's been a disaster. It hasn't worked, but he's giving no examples. Remember, is America a failed state? Well, actually, Trump, maybe that's the one, we'll give him that one, but not for the reasons he thinks. Sweden, failed state, no. You know, and he goes, but that's the problem, that's the division. And then he just moves on. Now, Jack does very well through this, but it's a typical Gish Gallop. Everyone knows what a Gish Gallop is, where you give out as many facts and words and stuff as possible that the person interviewing you can only come back to one. So the other 8 things you say they have to leave alone, or it would be a 19-hour video. So he's very good at saying big word, big word, big word, big word, big word, big concept, scary word, scary word, scary word, and Jack gets to come back at one of them. And so those other 19 things get left there for people to understand it. And all the writers go, oh gosh, didn't he take him apart? He didn't answer any of those other things he said. Yeah, because we don't have a spare 3 days. It's not, was it Nixon who did like a 48-hour interview? Something like that? We don't have the time for that. Sorry, Drew. I'm going to shut up. We'll get to the end of this.
One standard of citizenship, we're all human rights, you all have equal rights. That is vastly superior to what they've done. My argument is the last 50 years we've become more like, not very far, but we've started to go in the direction of division. And I think we need to go back to New Zealand's true approach, which is equal rights for all.
So why should...
There you go.